Inside a huge palace hall, chandeliers hang from the ceiling while light glows softly across the marble walls. Walking slowly towards the throne room, a young woman moves with grace as her shoes tap against the floor. Showing her long blonde hair, the girl wearing a blue dress enters the main area to meet the powerful ruler. Bowing her head, Amarian of Amari greets the king because she must show respect in this formal meeting. Standing far away from the throne, the young lady waits for a response while the king looks down at her. Moving his hand, the old monarch starts to introduce the person standing right next to him at the moment. Hearing the name of Victor Mort, the girl opens her eyes wide since she recognizes that famous title immediately. Appearing before her is the Grand Duke of the Empire, who looks very tall and imposing in his dark uniform. Known as the Walking Death, this man has golden eyes and a serious face that scares anyone who looks at him. Even in the cold northern lands of the continent, everyone knows the stories about this legendary warrior. Sitting by the fire, the tired soldiers share their food while talking about the many monsters they fought. Gossiping about the ruthless swordsman, the men say that he leaves no one alive when he enters a battlefield. People talk about him with both fear and respect because his power is something that nobody can ever ignore. Facing the Grand Duke in person feels like a dream to Amarian since she only heard rumors about him before. Looking at his handsome face, the girl thinks that this dangerous man is much more beautiful than she expected. Inside the palace, a noblewoman gets introduced as the top knight while the girl looks quite surprised by the sudden title. Looking closely at her, the handsome man asks if she can fight and the blonde says she knows enough to stay safe. When he asks for her identity, the girl simply introduces herself as Amarian while looking directly at the mysterious noble. Walking forward with heavy steps, the tall man says his name is Victor Mort and mentions he has a special deal for her. Hearing those words, the young lady stands there completely frozen because she did not expect him to say something so big. Describing him like death itself, the narrator says the man approached her with a proposal that sounded like a total joke. Standing tall, the commander asks for her hand in marriage and promises to make her the best raider in the whole empire. Under the bright moonlight, the girl sits alone while thinking about the crazy events that just changed her entire life. Feeling a bit lost, the knight wonders if she is making a mistake by going along with this weird plan so quickly. Moving through the dark forest, the carriages carry the couple after a super fast wedding ceremony with an old bishop. Without any family or friends nearby, the two of them exchange vows in a quiet room while the priest reads the holy book. Telling her to leave her stuff behind, the new husband says they will get everything later since they are in a hurry. Looking tired, the girl realizes she has nothing left but her own body while she follows this man into the unknown. Leaving before the sun even comes up, the girl notices they are traveling in separate carriages, which feels very strange. Sitting alone, the lady finally asks herself why she accepted such a crazy proposal without even trying to say no. Looking away, she still thinks about everything that just happened as she tries to process the situation. The massive amount of money he offered so casually surprised her because the sum was truly life-changing. This gold is enough to feed all her starving people for many years, and that is why she accepts the proposal. Every fear she had disappeared because the reward is worth risking her life for in the end. Danger is nothing new to her since she has been fighting for survival since the day she was born. An attendant shows her a modest room and apologizes for not having anything better for her to stay in. He mentions that the Duke will sleep in a separate area so she can relax without any worries for the night. The girl stays silent while the staff tells her to call them if she needs any help at all during her stay. Traveling in the carriage, she notices that the knights are polite but they never look her in the eyes. Even though she tries to be brave, the mystery of their destination makes her feel very nervous. Approaching the giant mansion only makes her anxiety grow as the sun shines over the tall towers. She is completely shocked to see such a beautiful house and wonders if people really live in such luxury. The servants welcome the new couple as they finally step inside the massive palace together. Looking at her new husband, she notices he looks extremely tired despite the short trip they just took. The man suddenly asks her to follow him as they move further into the mysterious building. Looking at her messy clothes, the girl feels very small in such a rich place since she looks totally out of place there. Walking behind the tall man, she thinks this fancy mansion does not suit someone like her at all, but she keeps moving forward. Arriving at a huge bedroom, the commander explains that both of them will have to share this same space from now on. Looking around the area, she notices many weapons and shields hanging on the walls like a true museum of war. Seeing the heavy armor standing in the corner makes the whole place feel like a dangerous fortress for a warrior. While following him, the blondie realizes this is definitely the home of a knight and she feels even more nervous. Turning around with a serious face, the dark-haired man says there is only one specific task she needs to complete. Looking directly into her eyes, the leader demands that she stays right next to him while he is resting. Adding a strange condition, the soldier says she must remain fully awake during the entire time he is sleeping. Shocked by the weird request, the poor girl wonders if she really has to stay up all night just to watch him. Grabbing a shiny blade from the wall, the man tells her to keep a close eye on him while he closes his eyes. Handing over the heavy weapon, the warrior gives her the responsibility of being his personal guard for the night. Showing a very cold expression, the master looks like he is hiding a dark secret that he cannot handle alone. Saying something crazy, the man allows her to attack him if things get too hard because he will not be angry about it. Canceling all the fancy dinners, the Duke orders the servants to lock every door so he can finally get some rest. Standing tall, the nobleman tells the girl to take his life if things get too hard since he won't be angry about it. Turning to the staff, the master orders the manor doors locked and cancels the banquet because he needs to rest now. Inside the dark bedroom, the knight sits beside the bed holding a sword while the lord prepares for his slumber. Lying down with his eyes closed, the handsome man seems peaceful, but a strange tension fills the quiet air around them. Looking at his companion, the leader says she will understand everything the moment he finally falls into a deep sleep. Worried for his safety, the lady warns him to keep his eyes open if he truly wants to wake up when the sun rises. Clutching the weapon, the young woman wonders why he told her to use the blade if anything goes wrong during the night. Recalling scary rumors, the commoners whisper that the Duke might be a dragon or even a thirsty vampire after dark. Staring into the shadows, the girl feels nervous because the secrets of this mysterious man are starting to haunt her. Exhaling a soft breath, she tries to stay focused despite the silence of the room becoming heavier with every minute. While the single candle flickers on the wall, the light slowly fades as the night grows deeper and more dangerous. Fighting against her exhaustion, the tired girl begins to doze off while her head drops forward for a quick second. Waking up suddenly, the maiden looks toward the bed to see if the sleeping noble has changed into something scary. Seeing the figure move, the white-haired girl realizes the man is no longer resting peacefully like he was before. Noticing his glowing eyes, the lady whispers his title in fear as the true nature of the master finally reveals itself. The silver-haired girl stands in shock while holding her weapon because she sees the Grand Duke is acting very strange. Duke Mort walks away with his sword and seems to be in another world while ignoring everything around him. Looking at the blade, the young lady realizes that she must do something before things get even worse than they already are. Focusing on his face, we see his eyes are glowing with a weird yellow light, which indicates that he is not himself anymore. Standing there with a vacant look, the man holds his sword firmly and prepares to attack without saying a single word. Suddenly, the warrior moves so fast that the girl can barely react and her eyes widen as she realizes the danger. He swings his blade with extreme force while she screams for him to stop and tries her best to block the incoming strike. Metal hits metal with a loud sound and sparks fly everywhere as the two weapons collide in the middle of the dark room. Glaring at each other during the clash, the girl notices that the fighter has a totally blank expression on his cold face. Observing his clouded eyes, she wonders if the lord is moving in his sleep or if he is under some kind of magic trance. Dodging a powerful horizontal slash, the lady falls to the floor, but she knows he is still terrifyingly strong even like this. Jumping back, she understands that the guy is not coming to his senses, so she decides to keep blocking to survive the fight. Clenching her teeth, the protagonist realizes she cannot hold out for much longer and must find a way to end this madness soon. Moving quickly through the room, the silver-haired girl finds an opening and rushes toward him to deliver a decisive blow. Using her sword hilt, she strikes his neck to knock him out so he can finally rest and stop this dangerous sleepwalking. Holding a large sword, the girl stands over the fallen boy while he lies motionless on the cold floor. Sweating and trembling, she looks completely terrified by the sudden violence that just took place. Gripping the weapon with both hands, the silver-haired lady breathes heavily while staring at her victim. Looking at the unconscious young man, she starts to regret her actions since she used too much strength. Panicked thoughts fill her mind because she fears that the boy might be seriously injured or even worse. Lowering her head, the lady feels a deep sense of guilt while waiting for any sign of life from him. Trapped by her own fear, she sits in a corner because she is too scared to even check if he is breathing. Watching from a distance, the girl wonders what kind of strange monster this person actually is. Resting her chin on her hand, the silver-haired girl wonders what will happen to her after this mess. Suddenly, the young man opens his golden eyes while still lying on the ground in the middle of the room. Slowly pushing himself up, the boy begins to move as the lady watches him with a very careful gaze. Showing a serious expression, the guy looks around while trying to understand where he is right now. Clutching the sheathed sword, the girl stays on the floor while keeping her distance from the waking man. Staring intently, the boy shows his sharp yellow eyes, which make the atmosphere feel very heavy and tense. Hiding behind her weapon, the girl finally asks if the Lord is awake while she waits for his reaction. Sitting on the floor, the dark-haired man notices she is still breathing, so he says she survived. Staring back with her pale eyes, the lady asks if he was actually hoping for her death. Looking away, the guy claims he is just shocked by the situation because he did not expect this outcome. Silence fills the large room while the two characters stand there without saying another single word to each other. Reaching down, the white-haired girl grabs a fancy sword and holds it tight while the man watches her closely. His bright yellow eyes glow slightly as he watches her every move with a very mysterious and deep expression. Telling her she has suffered enough, the man turns around to leave the bedroom so she can finally get some rest. Clutching the weapon, the girl looks quite confused and worried about everything that just happened in that moment. After the visitor leaves, the heavy wooden doors of the chamber close and lock everyone else out of the area. Feeling completely exhausted, the lady collapses onto the big purple bed because her body cannot take any more stress. Bright light shines through the window and the curtains stay open while a brand new day begins outside the palace. Opening her eyes slowly, the princess looks at the ceiling and tries to remember what happened the night before. Sitting up in the fancy bed, she notices the sun is high and wonders exactly how many hours she was knocked out. Apparently, the girl had a very long and deep sleep because she looks much better after resting for such a long time. Entering the room, a young maid bows down and tells the lady that it is finally time for her to wake up. Sitting on the bed, the girl tells the maid that she wants to wash up first and then have a nice meal. The servant explains that the master left strict orders to have a full table ready the moment she woke up. Staring at the feast, she asks if it is really alright to eat everything because it looks like a decoration. Shortly after, the silver-haired lady finishes every single bite and leaves the plates completely empty on the table. Feeling a bit worried, she wonders if she overate since the noble ladies in the capital usually eat very little. An older woman named Simona introduces herself as the head maid while promising to focus on her comfort. Looking up with curiosity, the protagonist listens as the staff member tells her to ask for anything she might need. With a serious face, the young woman decides to ask about the Grand Duke and what happens during his sleep. The leader of the servants stands tall before her while reinforcing that she is there to help with any request. Showing a gentle expression, the lady is encouraged once more to speak up if anything at all is on her mind. Determined to get answers, she repeats her question about the mysterious condition of the master of the house. Shocked by the request, the old worker gasps and apologizes for assuming that the lady already knew the truth. Looking away, Simona explains that the situation is very serious and not something they can talk about easily. Understanding the gravity, the girl mentions that she is just relieved no one was actually hurt during the night. The maid explains that His Highness went through a long war where he witnessed many terrible and sad things. Stories say the young man fought through many ambushes and was the only person who made it out alive. An older woman explains that the Duke has been haunted by bad dreams since his time on the battlefield. Sleepwalking became a huge problem because he would start swinging his sword while he was still unconscious. Visiting every famous doctor, the soldier stayed awake for days and ended up tying his own limbs to rest. Looking at the guest, the servant says the man brought her to this place after suffering for several months. The head maid admits they were wrong to assume she only had a secret way to keep the master from waking. With a serious face, the lady in black looks like she is regretting her previous thoughts about the girl. The beautiful noble listens quietly as she learns about the deep trauma caused by the long and brutal war. Without a weapon nearby or a wide open space, the leader is completely unable to find any peace or sleep. Turning her head, the silver-haired woman processes everything she just heard about the troubled man. She tells the group she wants to rest and asks them to take the items away while she stays in bed. Before leaving the room, the caretaker stops and asks if she can be bold enough to seek one answer. The staff member wonders how the girl managed to put the Duke back to sleep after he suddenly woke up. Looking a bit nervous, the protagonist thinks about what really happened during that chaotic moment last night. Everyone is shocked when the maiden reveals she simply fought the master and knocked him out to end the struggle. Watching the man tremble on the floor, she realizes how many people are actually trapped in this cycle of constant pain. Staring at his terrified face, the girl feels a deep sadness since she understands their fear better than anyone else. While walking past the wounded soldiers, she remembers the harsh reality and admits that she knows this pain all too well. Looking at the dark-haired Duke, she finds it strange to feel pity for a man who was famously known as the Duke of Death. Despite the scary situation, the blonde girl remains thoughtful and realizes that she cannot just ignore her feelings. Suggesting he should have warned her, she hears him say that he expected her to run away after learning the truth. Since there is nowhere else to go, she asks him where he thinks she would even run to anyway in this lonely world. Admitting it was a tough job, he notes that subduing him without getting hurt was a very impressive feat of strength. Worried about his head, she asks if he is okay, but he just tells her to focus only on her own survival from now on. Mentioning the rumors about her skills, the man says it is lucky that her swordsmanship is actually quite formidable. Feeling her pity fade because of his cold words, she wonders if he is too exhausted to care about anyone else at all. Telling her to sleep once she finishes her work, he mentions that he never wakes up twice during a single night. Watching him sleep peacefully, the blonde girl stays quiet as the room remains dark and silent around the two of them. Putting on a simple white shirt, she prepares herself for the next part of her journey while staying focused on the task. Standing tall with a sword in her hand, she looks ready to face any challenge that comes her way in this dangerous place. First, we see the girl tying her long hair while preparing for a long and tiring night. Sitting near the bed, she watches the dark-haired man rest while holding her heavy sword tightly. Suddenly, the warrior swings her weapon with full force because she needs to stop him right now. Moving quickly, the guy tries to avoid the attack, but the girl is much faster and stays on the offensive. With a sharp look in her eyes, she focuses on every single movement to ensure her plan actually works. The struggle continues in the middle of the room as both of them show off their impressive combat skills. Falling onto the bed, the man finally stops moving since the blonde girl used every ounce of her strength. Looking at him, she worries that hitting his head so much might cause some permanent damage in the future. Exhausted from the fight, the young woman takes a deep breath while the heavy tension leaves her body. While checking on him, she hears a small groan but remembers his promise about not waking up again. Now that he is finally asleep, the man looks quite peaceful despite the chaotic mess they just made. Laying down on the floor next to him, she thinks that being close will prevent him from attacking her later. Staring into the distance, she asks herself how much longer this crazy situation is going to last. Curling up with her blade, she wonders if the only way to end this cycle is by losing her life to him. Just as she starts to drift off, a soft voice calls out the word wife and makes her eyes open wide. The man looms over the blonde girl and calls her his wife while she stares back at him in complete shock. Looking closely at her, the handsome guy asks if she really spent the whole night sleeping in that weird position. This makes the maiden furious because she thinks it is all his fault, even though he looks totally confused right now. A close look shows the sharp jawline of this mysterious noble who seems way too calm for such a tense situation. Suddenly his expression softens into a slight smile as he continues to observe the young lady on the bed. She can only gasp in surprise while tightly clutching the large sword she kept by her side for protection. Moving back a bit, he mentions that at least she managed to get some rest during this very crazy ordeal. After she confirms, he suggests they should go eat breakfast together and says he will call the maids over. Surprised by his sudden change in attitude, the warrior watches him closely while still holding her weapon. Without saying another word, the tall prince turns around and starts walking away to leave the large bedroom. She lets go of the heavy blade on the ground as the tension finally starts to leave her body for a moment. Standing up, the blonde woman follows him through the hallway while thinking about everything that happened. They stop in front of a huge painting of an old man who belongs to the legendary and ancient House of Mort. Looking at the gallery, the girl realizes she is now part of a family as old as the entire empire itself. These old portraits show how much wealth and power this bloodline has held for many hundreds of years. Standing in the grand halls, the girl remembers her poor family who had to burn paper just to survive the freezing winter cold. Walking beside the butler, she decides to stop being jealous because it feels wrong while surrounded by the faces of the dead. Floating in the center of the room is a legendary sword used by the family to protect the empire since the start of time. Staring at the wall, she notices that every portrait looks almost exactly like the next person in line throughout history. Thinking about the current master, she realizes he has a scary nickname but possesses a face that is way too handsome. Snapping back to reality, the lady smiles as the old man asks if they should keep going with the tour of the massive palace. Exploring the bright and fancy room, she says yes while following him deeper into the luxurious building. Moving through the hallway, the butler leads the way while explaining the history behind the expensive decorations on the walls. Entering a new area, they see a fancy lounge filled with blue chairs and a chessboard sitting right in the middle of the room. Arriving at the next stop, the servant shows her the armory where many sharp blades and strange potions are kept on shelves. Seeing all the cool equipment, the girl gets super excited and puts her hands together while her eyes sparkle with joy. Turning to the man named Diderik, she nervously asks if it is actually okay for her to touch the weapons on display. Grabbing a heavy sword, she learns that most of these items were part of a collection started by the grandfather of the Duke. Offering a surprising gift, the butler tells her that she can choose any weapon that catches her eye to keep for herself. Feeling confused, she asks if he is sure about this, while the old man explains that the boss gave this order early today. Holding the weapon, she wonders why the man gave her such a big privilege after knowing her for just a few days. Carefully touching the scabbard, the girl reminds herself to stay humble because a knight must always show restraint. The butler notices her interest in the armory and says she seems to prefer sharp blades over fancy jewelry or dresses. Looking surprised, the lady listens as the man mentions how the maids are talking about her great skills with a sword. Smiling, the old man tells her to not be so modest since most knights can't even last 2 rounds against the Duke. Thinking to herself, the woman realizes those soldiers only spar with the master while he is still acting sane. As they start walking, the butler suggests heading toward the gardens, but the girl suddenly stops in her tracks. Turning around, the man asks what is wrong and she explains that a delicious smell just caught her attention. A spread of fresh fruit and warm bread appears, looking much better than any expensive treasure in the world. Sitting at the massive table, the blonde girl is told to speak up whenever she requires anything else for her meal. Looking quite elegant, the lady stays quiet while she processes everything happening around her in this new life. Reaching out with her hand, the protagonist grabs a piece of bread that looks soft and very tasty to eat right now. Staring at the food, the girl thinks a warm loaf of bread is worth more than all the gems and silk in the kingdom. Sitting alone in the large room, she feels happy to eat warm meals, but a weird feeling of sadness starts to follow. Suddenly, the handsome Duke appears and asks if she has finished her dinner already while looking straight at her. Facing her master, the girl explains that she finished her work just now, so the man says that is a real shame. Looking disappointed, the lord mentions he wanted to eat together, and this news leaves the blonde woman speechless. Total confusion hits the young girl because she never expected such a weird invitation from someone like him. Trying to fix the situation, the master asks if he can wait for her next time, and she agrees to his request. With a small smile, the man says he will come back early tomorrow, and then he leaves the girl alone with her thoughts. Staring into nothingness, the lady looks completely shocked because she cannot believe what just happened between them. Thinking she hit his head too hard, the girl panics and asks a maid where the library is located in this huge place. Later that night, the woman is reading on the sofa when the lord appears and asks if she is enjoying the book. Nervous about being caught, she explains that she took some volumes from his personal collection to study a bit. Leaning closer, the master says she does not need to ask because everything in this house belongs to her now. Noticing the medical topics, he asks what she is studying and she quickly hides the book while telling him to rest. Changing the subject, the man asks if she likes the house and she replies that the place is truly amazing. Comparing the homes, the Duke mentions that his castle in the north is even more beautiful despite the cold. Holding the books, the blonde lady remembers that a long winter is just like the place she used to live before. Watching her closely, the dark-haired man promises to take her to those snowy lands when the time is right. The dark-haired man looks at her with a gentle gaze while saying this place is her new home from now on. Hearing those words makes the girl freeze up because she did not expect him to be so welcoming right now. She looks completely stunned and her mind starts racing to figure out what she should do next in this situation. Looking at him lying there, the lady decides that hitting his head is a bad idea because he is acting too nice. Suddenly, the atmosphere changes and she grabs the blanket with a lot of force while preparing for a new plan. The girl climbs onto the bed and begs the guy to just go to sleep so that her struggle can finally end. Her hands grip the fabric tightly as the tension in the room grows even stronger during this weird confrontation. Staring with intense eyes, the blonde lady focuses all her energy on the target right in front of her face. With a quick movement, she lunges forward while trying to take control of the man who is resting on the mattress. The young man looks quite bothered by the sudden attack and sweat starts to drip down his face from the pressure. A loud sound echoes through the bedroom when she finally manages to land a clean hit on the handsome guy. Now the protagonist sits on the floor feeling like a total idiot because she almost choked him out by mistake. Resting for a bit, the warrior girl starts to think about the situation while looking at the person sleeping peacefully. She realizes that his combat style and movements are becoming easier to understand after watching him for so long. Comparing the nights, she feels that taking him down is finally getting easier since they are now on their second day. Walking through the beautiful garden, the blonde lady hears a servant calling her name as she explores the area. Approaching her with a smile, the maid mentions that some fresh snacks just came out of the hot oven for her. Looking at the table filled with treats, the older woman encourages her to try every single cookie and sweet. Staring at the massive feast, the young girl feels a bit lost because everything looks so delicious and perfect. Noticing a small cloth with cute fruit patterns, she learns the other servants worked hard to make her happy. Suggesting a nice gesture, the maid says that a simple thank you would make the workers feel incredibly proud. Feeling a bit confused, the lady wonders if she truly deserves all this special treatment from everyone around her. Quickly correcting her, the servant explains that the entire mansion actually feels very lucky to have her there. Recalling the dark past, the woman mentions that the master can finally rest well now that she has arrived home. Looking at the busy servants outside, the lady realizes that the gloomy atmosphere of the house has totally vanished. Smiling brightly, the maid claims that life in this place will only get better and brighter from this moment on. Hearing those kind words, the protagonist stops to think about the man who owns this huge and fancy estate. Sitting across the table, a handsome man apologizes for missing their previous meals together due to his busy life. Explaining his absence, the guy mentions his huge pile of work and she tells him not to worry about the schedule. Ending the awkward silence, they both agree to finally enjoy their food while the man thanks her for being there. Holding a glass of wine, the girl feels a comforting warmth spreading through her body. Looking around, she sees the servants bringing plenty of food while they show genuine smiles. During a slow and peaceful meal, the two spend their time sharing small stories about their day. Watching him closely, the lady starts to realize that he changed a lot since their first meeting. Even though everything seems fine, the man still carries a dark and heavy mystery within his mind. Training hard with his sword, he shows the body of a true warrior, but his spirit feels completely lost. Falling to the ground, the fighter looks like he is being crushed by the weight of too many memories. Seeing him like that, she finds it impossible to believe he could ever be a happy or cheerful person. Thinking back to her own battle, she only kept her sanity because she fought monsters instead of people. Covering him with a blanket, she reflects on how terrifying it is when humans start killing each other. Later that night, the protagonist stays quiet while focusing all her attention on reading a thick book. Entering the room, the lord notices her hobby and she explains there is nothing else to do while he is away. Offering anything she wants, the man says she can use the entire manor or ask the butler for help. Going even further, he suggests building a whole new part of the house if she is not happy with the current one. Gripping her book tightly, the young woman simply says she has no need for any of those expensive things. Telling the girl to think it over, the man watches her while she responds politely to her master. Lying down on the bed, the handsome noble stares into the distance with a very calm expression. Noticing he is still awake, the young lady asks if the man intends to sleep anytime soon. His golden eyes shine under the dim light as he remains silent for a brief moment. Breaking the silence, the lord asks if the girl will grant him a small permission. Looking directly at her, the man wonders if he can finally learn her real name. Smiling softly, the noble asks if it is alright to address her more personally from now on. Thinking to herself, the girl finds it strange that he treats a simple name like a sacred treasure. The man says she can call him whatever she wants and reveals his own name as Amarian. Hearing his name, the girl decides that calling him Marion would be a good choice. Speaking softly, the young woman tries out the new name while looking at her companion. Surprised by her own voice, the girl feels a bit shy after saying that name out loud. Watching her reaction, the noble seems pleased to hear his name being whispered like that. Turning her head away, the lady tries to hide her blushing face from his intense gaze. Insisting on the matter, the man says she must also call him by his name from this point forward. Victor tells the girl she should call him by his name since he already calls her by hers. Looking at her with a gentle expression, the man waits for her answer while she stays silent. The young lady finally whispers the name Victor, which makes the Duke smile with joy. Blushing hard after saying it, the blonde looks away, trying to hide her red face. Candles light up the dark bedroom while the atmosphere becomes quiet and very peaceful. Lying down, the Duke says he can finally sleep well and asks her to watch over him. Holding a heavy sword, the protector listens to him wish her a good night as he closes his eyes. Her eyes shine with many emotions because she never expected to hear such sweet words. Soon the powerful man falls into a deep sleep while the area stays completely silent. Sitting on a chair with her weapon, the guard feels shy about how soft her name sounded. Looking at the big castle, she thinks about how strange and rich this new life feels. Raising a hand to the bright sky, the girl feels the warm sun touching her skin. While reading a book, she wonders if she might get a tan just like the handsome Duke. Thinking about it makes her feel a bit bad because comparing herself to him seems wrong. Suddenly a servant calls for her, saying that the master needs her presence right away. Inside the fancy office, the master sits at his desk while the old butler stands right by his side. Looking very serious, the Duke stares down at some papers while his assistant waits for orders. Even though he is a powerful man, the noble looks quite troubled while he thinks about something. Watching him closely, the silver-haired girl notices that his expression is full of worry. Breaking the silence, the handsome man calls out her name and prepares to say something important. Confused by his tone, the young lady asks if something happened or if there is a big problem. Explaining the situation, the master tells her that she needs to start managing the whole mansion. Looking at the huge estate, he decides it is finally time for her to take full charge of the place. Surprised by the sudden news, the girl listens as he explains that every noblewoman must do this. Trembling slightly, she admits that she only thought her job was to help him sleep at night. Remembering her past, she only knew how to fight with a sword just to stay alive in a fortress. Seeing her reaction, the dark-haired man stops for a moment and realizes she is very nervous. Approaching her gently, the Duke says he did not want to scare her but just wanted to keep a promise. With a small smile, he reminds her about the vow to make her the greatest lady in the entire empire. Reassuring his wife, the Lord says she deserves all the rights and the butler will help her learn. The butler leads the lady into a fancy office while explaining that she will be using this room from now on. Didarik places a pile of thick books on the table and asks her to look through the financial records of the house. He promises to keep handling the math since she only needs to worry about the final choices for the mansion. While talking about the change of seasons, the man asks which color she would prefer for the new summer curtains. The girl starts thinking about curtains and remembers a cold old building from her past life. Back then, those things were only used to stop the freezing wind and snow from getting inside the house. Looking confused, the lady says that wooden planks or monster skins would work as she decides to pick them herself. The old man wonders if there are any other supplies she requires for her daily life in the palace. Thinking for a moment, the protagonist mentions that her current shoes are too big and keep slipping off her feet. Didarik realizes her clothes are also poor quality because the mansion has not had a mistress for a long time. The servant starts shouting for Mrs. Somona because it is a tragedy that the Grand Duchess has nothing to wear. The head maid feels so ashamed of this situation that she can barely even look at her lady while bowing deeply. Even though the girl says she is fine, a professional tailor suddenly arrives to fix her fashion problems. Staring with intense eyes, the visitor claims the Duchess is stunning and has very elegant long arms. The staff members agree that her hair color is rare and she will look perfect standing next to the Duke. Late at night, the Grand Imperial Palace stands quietly under the bright full moon. Inside the room, a fancy table is set with warm tea and delicious cakes for the guests. Looking at her own reflection, the girl feels insecure about her pale skin and thin body. While sitting across from the handsome Duke, she compares her looks to his strong appearance. Suddenly, an excited lady with glasses starts praising the girl for her amazing beauty. Moving around the protagonist, the stylist admires her long arms and says her posture is perfect. Touching the soft locks, the woman mentions how beautiful and rare the young lady's hair is. Standing before the mirror, the protagonist hears that she will look perfect next to the Grand Duke. Still feeling doubtful, the noblewoman thinks about how the man has such a captivating face. Accompanied by her maid, the girl worries about what people will say when they see them together. Opening the price book, the blonde gets a huge shock because there are so many zeros on the tag. After seeing the high prices, she says that she does not need such fancy things. Slowly sipping his tea, the Duke admits he made a mistake by not giving her things she needs. Apologizing for his lack of attention, the man promises that stylists will visit the mansion regularly. Upon hearing his kind words, the maiden looks surprised as the master tells her to order whatever she wants. Looking down at her lap, the lady mentions that he can have the item even if he does not think it is necessary. Sitting in the large room, the man explains his tough past in the borderlands where life was very hard for everyone. Because he only needed food and scrap metal, the dark-haired guy never really wanted anything else in his life. Looking quite peaceful, Marion tells him that everything he already gave her is already more than enough for her. Staying silent for a moment, the husband seems to be thinking deeply about the words he just heard from his wife. Feeling bad about his actions, he admits to making a mistake by trying to buy her happiness with expensive gifts. Instead of more presents, the girl asks for a favor and suggests that they should train together during the day. Clearly surprised by the request, the man listens as she explains she wants to learn more about his great combat skills. While she usually dislikes fighting, the Duchess seems willing to make an exception just to spend time with him. Bowing her head slightly, she shows her respect and agreement to the new plan they just made for their training. Seeing him smile so brightly makes the girl realize how much he has changed since the first day they met. Deciding to end the night, the husband heads to bed while hoping he is not being too much trouble for his lady. Lying down on the pillows, the Lord calls out to Marion with a very soft and gentle tone in his voice. Holding her sword while sitting nearby, the lady hears him say how happy he is to have her by his side right now. Looking closely at his face, the Duchess seems moved by his kind words while she stays there to watch over him. Sleeping peacefully, the man stays in his bed while the room remains very quiet. Watching him rest, the girl thinks about how kind he is and feels truly grateful. Even though she wants to speak, she just hesitates and whispers a sweet goodnight. Later, the maids show off many beautiful dresses and beg her to pick a favorite. Excitedly, the helpers surround her while wanting to fix her hair to match the style. Suddenly, the handsome man enters the room and notices that the new clothes arrived. He wonders why she is up so early since it is barely noon and tells her to try them. Wearing the new outfit, the lady looks amazing while the workers stare in total shock. The girls keep shouting about her beauty while the boss watches her very closely. Smiling softly, the Duke says she looks truly beautiful and makes the mood bright. Her eyes start to sparkle because she never expected to hear such a nice compliment. Noticing the nice weather, he asks if she wants to go for a walk outside with him.
Moving through the city, the carriage travels along the busy streets while the young woman wonders about their destination. Answering her question, the handsome Duke mentions they are heading toward the training grounds of his own knightly order. Explaining the plan, the man says some guards stay behind in the capital even though most return to their estate. Looking out the window, the lady recognizes the path because this route seems very familiar to her after so much time. Recalling her first days, she remembers traveling this exact same way when she first stepped foot into the large empire. Back then, the girl never imagined she would be traveling this road again while sitting right next to such a powerful man. Arriving at the massive headquarters, the couple hears the loud greeting from the soldiers who welcome their leader home. Stepping forward, the noble husband introduces his beautiful wife to the group and tells them her name is Amarion. Observing their strong bodies, the lady notices that seeing these warriors in person feels different than on the road. The commander proudly claims that these men form the strongest knightly order in the entire kingdom as they stand together. Greeting the soldiers with a polite bow, the blonde lady introduces herself as Amarion of Amari while the men watch her. Staring in total silence, the young knights look completely shocked while the master watches them with his golden eyes. Feeling very nervous, the girl wonders if she said something wrong because everyone is looking at her with such weird faces. Raising his hand, one of the soldiers asks if the Duchess is actually a knight since her greeting was very professional. Realizing her mistake, the maiden panics because she accidentally used a formal knightly salute out of pure habit. Walking through the hall, the blonde corrects her title since she is now a member of the powerful Mort family. Suddenly, a soldier asks if the rumor about her fighting the Duke every single night is actually a true story. Shocked by the confirmation, the guards look at the girl with wide eyes because they cannot believe what they heard. With total confusion, the men wonder how a small girl can stand her ground against such a powerful monster. Pulling her close, the leader says it takes a whole unit to restrain him and tells them to stop scaring his wife. Mocking the situation, a redhead knight says the husband is so obsessed he never lets her leave their bedroom. Telling the man to stop his behavior, the master looks annoyed while his friend keeps laughing at his serious face. Staring at the group, the lady realizes these famous warriors are much more friendly than the scary stories said. Even though they are known for killing enemies, the companions act like close brothers during their short break. Observing her small frame, the funny subordinate wonders how such a delicate person could ever hope to fight him. With a mysterious gaze, the dark-haired man explains that curiosity is the reason he brought her to the training area. In the middle of the large arena, the couple prepares to duel while the other men watch them closely. Before the fight begins, the warrior warns her that beating him while he is awake will be a much harder challenge. Gripping her own sword, the brave girl reminds him that even his sleeping form was a very dangerous opponent. While looking into those golden eyes, the maiden admits that the Duke was never a simple enemy to defeat before. Starting the duel, the handsome Duke lunges forward while calling out to his lady with a confident smirk on his face. Clashing their blades together, the blonde girl blocks a heavy strike while focusing on her opponent's every movement. Moving with incredible speed, the warrior deflects another blow because she knows the man is not holding back right now. Deciding to play the villain, the lady prepares a counterattack while telling the master that she will strike first. Jumping high into the air, the agile girl flips over her husband because she needs to find a better opening to win. Watching him closely, the princess wonders how a man so large can move with such insane speed during the daytime. Realizing he is fully awake, the blonde notices his blade is sharp and every single movement feels very intentional. Sliding across the floor, the girl tries to keep her balance while the sound of their training echoes through the hall. Barely keeping up with the fast attacks, the maiden struggles to block and dodge while the pressure keeps growing. Sweating from the intense effort, the protagonist looks determined since she must prove her worth as a skilled knight. Pushing against his heavy sword, the lady feels his incredible strength and understands why he is called a monster. Looking totally calm, the dark-haired warrior stays focused on the duel as he tests the skills of his new partner. Opening her eyes wide, the lady feels a sudden chill because the intensity of the fight is reaching a brand new level. Swinging her weapon with all her might, the warrior tries one last time to break through his perfect defensive stance. Standing at a distance, the couple stops for a moment while the atmosphere remains tense and full of raw energy. Moving with extreme grace, the powerful man changes direction while holding his weapon during the intense training session. Watching every move, the blonde girl tries to find a single opening, but the master has a perfect defense in this moment. A loud cracking sound echoes through the hall as the sharp blade of the girl suddenly snaps into two pieces during the clash. Raising her hand, the lady admits she lost the duel because her sword could not handle the pressure of the fight anymore. Looking at his wife with a gentle gaze, the dark-haired man shows a small smile while he admires her incredible combat spirit. Fixing her hair, the maiden feels a bit disappointed since there were several more techniques she wanted to test out today. Standing nearby, the younger knights look completely shocked while staring at the girl who just fought their legendary leader. Approaching the blonde, the Duke mentions that the king was telling the truth when he called her the greatest warrior of all. Patting her head, the handsome master looks down with pride because he finally found someone who can match his own strength. Thinking it was just flattery, the shy lady claims that she only managed to block his attacks without actually winning. Swarming the warrior, the excited soldiers start asking many questions about her footwork while begging for some special tips. Allowing the group to talk, the leader tells his wife to spend time with them but warns the boys to not pester the Duchess. Someone mentions they thought the man had lost his mind after hearing that a woman managed to beat him in a real battle. Looking very impressed, the red-haired knight says he doubts anyone else on the entire continent can fight the Duke like that. Agreeing with the praise, the husband admits he was taking the duel seriously, yet his blade never even touched her clothes. Walking through the hall, the knights notice her wild movements while mentioning she comes from the northern land of Amari. Hearing about her home, the soldiers realize her rough style makes sense because that place is a constant battlefield. Victor explains that monsters always attack from the mountains and says she has used a sword since before age 10. Looking at the castle, the men agree she is strong, but she has no clue about her own power because she only fought beasts. The redhead wonders if she ever lost a fight since she only stayed home to face waves of monsters her whole life. The Duke mentions she only fought weak mercenaries and does not know she is one of the best knights in the world. Following the leader, the blonde soldier asks if the master truly plans to send the young girl back home later. Mentioning the angry lords, the guard says the plan was to keep her until he got better and then marry a rich noble. The knights remind him that the girl is the heir of her lands and must return to protect her own people soon. Staring coldly, the commander asks what would happen to those lands if the lady never returns to her kingdom. Silence falls as the master thinks about the fate of her home while the group continues walking through the palace. Victor insists that if she is truly the heir, they must let her go eventually or the territory will surely fall apart. Lowering his gaze, the powerful man seems to be hiding his true feelings about losing the person who helps him rest. Facing his men, the Duke asks why he should care because he paid a huge price and she chose to stay by his side. Suggesting a yearly payment to her land, the boss leaves his soldiers shocked while they shout his title in surprise. Looking at her with a serious gaze, the powerful Duke decides she belongs to him because she is a true equal in a fight. Observing her closely, he notices the worn-out dress and rough hands that make her look nothing like a typical noble lady. Even in that simple outfit, the girl keeps her posture perfectly straight while her thin arms remain steady and strong. Staring into those fierce eyes, the man realizes she is a master with the blade and a rare gem he never expected to find. Watching her walk away, the cold warrior makes a silent promise that he will never let her leave his side ever again. Sitting on a garden bench, the blonde lady reads a book while the butler mentions that the social season is coming soon. Smiling kindly, the old servant explains that nobles will soon gather for big parties to mingle with one another in the sun. Looking a bit worried, the girl asks if she must go, and the man confirms she needs to be seen as the new Grand Duchess. The butler explains that her house is the highest rank, so no one will look down on her during these fancy royal events. Thinking about the rules, she asks if she can just sit and meditate, but the servant says she cannot just ignore everyone. Asking about her husband, the lady learns that the Duke will be very busy with other meetings for quite some time now. Since she was a knight, the butler suggests that Madame Somona should teach her how to act like a proper noble lady soon. Suddenly a memory appears of her younger self being told to stand tall with dignity while she was just a small child. Watching her mother move with grace, the little girl hears that she must be like a flower swaying in a gentle breeze. Her mother insists that a perfect lady can find a good marriage and finally escape that cold and miserable life forever. Crying out to the heavens, a woman lies on her bed while begging to finally leave this hellish land behind. Lying in the cold snow, a wooden sword represents the strange desire of a young girl to learn how to fight. Clinging to her mother, the small child begs for lessons while the woman scolds the knights for allowing such a thing. Looking very stern, the lady reminds everyone about the dangers of Amari and the horrors waiting beyond the walls. Fearing the green goblins, the mother hugs her daughter and decides to stop teaching her how a noble girl should act. Standing tall under the rain, the dark castle looks gloomy while the protagonist thinks about the rules of high society. Appearing behind her, the handsome Duke says a rough imitation of noble manners is more than enough for him. Thinking about her new title, the blonde lady realizes that no one would ever dare to judge the wife of a powerful man. Looking a bit confused, the warrior wonders why his companion is acting so strange during their quiet time together. Known as the greatest knight on the continent, the commander stands tall while carrying the weight of his great honor. Promising to do her absolute best, the young woman stares at her husband while he tells her there is no need to worry. Feeling a deep ache in her heart, the lady watches the soldier suffer through a living hell inside his dark dreams. Holding her blade, the girl thinks she would rather study medicine since that could actually help her partner heal. Looking down with a soft smile, the master tells the girl she looks just like a little wildcat while sitting like that. Caught off guard by the weird nickname, the maiden looks up in shock as she wonders what the man really means. Leaning in very close, the Duke mentions how the girl looks so small while she is curled up like that right now. Looking back at him, the lady notices his bright yellow eyes and wonders what he is thinking in this quiet moment. Staring with an intense gaze, the man looks like he is ready to show his sharp claws at any second during the talk. Placing his large hand on her neck, the warrior makes the girl feel nervous while she continues to hold her heavy blade. Looking confused, the blonde lady asks if his eyes are actually yellow because they look just like hers at the moment. Standing tall with a small smile, the Lord says they have much more in common than she previously thought before today. Outside, the rain falls on the huge castle while the master tells her to put him back to sleep again tonight. Lying down on the soft bed, the tired noble prepares for his rest while the girl remains by his side to watch him. Sitting alone in the chair, the maiden thinks about how he moved so close and almost made her jump from surprise. Staring at his intense gaze, she thinks his eyes are as bright as the midday sun while they shine in the dark room. Looking down at her sword, the girl feels like her own reflection is as dull as the moonlight on a hazy evening. Watching the rain from the window, the lady waits for the night to pass while she keeps her weapon ready for anything. Pulling the heavy curtain shut, she tries to block out the world so they can focus on the difficult task ahead of them. Realizing they are not alike at all, the warrior knows those beautiful eyes will soon lose their focus once he is asleep. Just as happens every single night, the man begins to move while he struggles with the dark dreams inside his head. Holding his hands tightly, she thinks about the scary darkness that haunts the dreams of her new husband every night. Sitting on the bed, the lady feels a deep sadness for this powerful man while he struggles through his hidden pain. Gazing down at him, the girl remembers the stories of pure white snow that used to fall in her home long ago. Listening to the wind howl outside, the silver-haired lady recalls a soft lullaby she once heard during the cold winters. Looking at his peaceful face, the knight wishes the scary thoughts away like a star shining over a very dark pond. Praying for a dreamless rest, the woman stays by his side so the quiet night can finally wrap itself around him. Waking up to the bright morning light, the girl opens her eyes and wonders if the master is already gone for the day. Resting on the mattress, a very strong and muscular man greets her while showing a calm and relaxed expression. Noticing her presence, the handsome duke mentions that she rose much earlier than he expected this morning. Staring in total shock, the maiden can only hide her face because she did not expect to see him like this so soon. Seeing the lord without a shirt on, the lady gets very flustered and asks why he is not wearing his clothes yet. Blushing deeply, the girl realizes he is still in the room and asks why the soldier has not left for his work yet. Explaining himself, the duke says he waited just to talk to her because he wanted to spend a moment together. Watching his perfect body, the warrior asks Victor to stand up for a second while the man looks quite confused. Reaching out with her hand, the protagonist grabs a piece of fabric while preparing for the next task of the day. Clutching the soft fabric of his shirt, the girl looks up at the tall man while he watches her with a curious gaze. Realizing she is still holding onto him, the blonde warrior keeps her eyes fixed on his chest as she stays frozen in place. Covering his mouth, the handsome duke asks if she thinks he is actually wearing a corset underneath those loose clothes. Reaching out with both hands, the lady panics and offers to fix the mess she made while trying to stay calm. Laughing at her sudden reaction, the master finds the situation very funny because his wife is acting so flustered. Grabbing her small hand with his own, the warrior creates a very intense moment between them inside the quiet room. Moving closer to the maiden, the lord calls out to her while his golden eyes shine brightly under the soft light. Smiling with a bit of mischief, the duke asks if she remembers being the one who reached for his hand first last night. Leaning down to her level, the man admits that this small girl flusters him more than fighting an army of dozens of orcs. Entering the hall, a new man with red hair bows low while greeting the royal couple with a very formal and polite tone. Kneeling on one leg, the stranger introduces himself as Kaltz of Denion while showing his respect to the young duchess. Telling the knight to rise, the lady listens as the red-haired man wonders why she looks so tired and worn out today. Explaining her situation, the blonde mentions that the hard etiquette lessons for the social season are taking a huge toll. Standing next to the visitor, the old butler explains that this man will be her personal escort during the entire season. Looking completely shocked, the princess learns that every noble lady must be accompanied by a knight from her own house. High-ranking Sir Kaltz is a senior officer, and the head maid says he is the perfect escort for the upcoming event. Feeling quite odd, the ginger knight says he is actually the one receiving protection due to the difference in skill. Explaining the situation, the man says his presence helps her status since he is very popular among all the ladies. Since he is so handsome, sparkles appear while the man poses, and he really knows how to use his natural charm. Looking totally silent, the three companions stare at the soldier while he continues to act like a model in the hall. Feeling a bit awkward, the blonde lady quickly agrees he is attractive so the guy does not feel bad about his ego. In a playful way, the teacher jokes that living with the duke has ruined her taste and asks her to be nicer to people. Practicing her dance moves, the girl accidentally steps on his foot again, but her partner tells her to keep moving. Giving her a strange tip, the man says she should stomp on any guy who tries to invite her to the garden in secret. Staring with wide eyes, the protagonist looks shocked while the head maid starts to get angry at the bad advice. While yelling at the officer, the old woman looks annoyed because the girl wonders why the garden is a bad place. Defending his logic, the redhead says she needs to learn defense because he wants to avoid any real fights in the city. Although Somona claims no one would mess with the Duchess, the man mentions her husband is basically a scary dragon. As time passes quickly, the blonde spends every morning studying hard with the mentor to learn how a lady acts. During the afternoons, the knight teaches her ballroom dancing and explains the secret rules of the high society world. During the long nights, she stays busy putting the duke to sleep while their constant struggle never seems to reach an end. Wearing a stunning yellow gown, the lady looks absolutely magnificent while she practices her movements for the big event. Thus clapping their hands, the maids claim she is perfect because her hair is in place and she moves like a graceful swan. Since she gets such warm praise, the girl feels heartened, although she remains very focused on her dance steps today. By working hard every single day, the blonde lady hopes to become a worthy wife who can stand tall by her husband's side. Standing in the hall, the Grand Duke looks very impressive in his silver armor while the light shines behind his back. Panicking suddenly, the girl apologizes to Sir Kaltz and asks if the man is tired from their long training session today. Because her mind was wandering for a moment, the maiden feels embarrassed while asking about the upcoming royal ball. Down the stairs the master walks with the butler while his heavy cape flows behind his strong frame like a shadow. Softly calling her name, the handsome noble says the girl looks far more beautiful than usual and makes her feel surprised. While thinking the comment is ridiculous, the lady listens as the head maid explains that a heavier gown needs practice. By offering his help, the commander suggests she could have called for him since he was nearby and ready to dance. Looking stunned, the white-haired girl wonders if the busy lord is actually being serious about being her practice partner. Gently lifting her chin, the man gazes into her eyes with a soft look that makes the atmosphere feel very romantic and warm. Totally red, the girl shouts that she will keep practicing with the knight while the servants watch them in total shock. Inside the grand manor, the morning light hits the golden walls while the quiet halls wait for the busy day to begin. Eating her breakfast, the girl stares at the meat while thinking that the scary duke looks quite different today. Cutting his food with a serious face, the powerful man seems to be pouting like a little kid for some reason. Breaking the silence, the blonde lady calls out his name while the master wonders what is on her mind right now. Looking down with a shy face, the girl admits she is still struggling to learn how to dance like a proper noble. Mentioning her training, the maiden says she keeps kicking the poor knight because her feet just won't move correctly. Finishing her meal, the protagonist asks if the duke will dance with her once she finally masters the difficult steps. Smiling softly, the dark-haired man tells the girl she is very strange because she cares about such tiny things. Holding his glass of wine, the leader admits he feels a bit petty since he trusts that knight but feels annoyed anyway. Setting the glass down, the husband tells her to stay calm because he never wants this new life to feel like a burden. Listening to his kind words, the lady learns she should just enjoy herself without worrying about making any mistakes. Clenching her gloved hands, the girl decides she must act like a perfect lady to show her respect during the ball. Arriving at the huge estate, a red-haired man greets the Duchess while welcoming her to the house of the Duke of Mule. Wearing expensive pearls, the girl shows off her elegant neck while preparing to face the eyes of the high society. Standing in a beautiful blue dress, the blonde warrior vows to never bring any shame to the great name of her husband.